This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week we conclude our YA Coach series with our softball and baseball coaches. Softball head coach McKell Barnes and baseball head coach Jon Martin join the show. That's coming up on the Bates Bobcast. McKell Barnes completed her 7th season as the head coach of the Bates College softball program in 2020, having taken over the position in January of 2014. In 2018, Barnes led the Bates softball team to its most wins in program history and the Bobcats' second appearance in the NESCAC Tournament. Bates finished the season with an overall record of 20-14. The Bobcats returned to the NESCAC Tournament in 2019, and the promising 2020 squad finished 6-2 in a pandemic-shortened season. Barnes played college softball at UMaine Farmington and was the 2009 North Atlantic Conference Player of the Year.
As a player, I never really thought about coaching. I was really passionate about the game. I really loved being on a team. But coaching in college never really crossed my mind as like, oh, hey, this is actually a profession, even though I had full-time college coaches for their careers. It really kind of kickstarted so I graduated and I became a high school math teacher at my alma mater high school, Brunswick High School, and conveniently Bowdoin, also located in Brunswick. And I knew that I just wanted to be a part of the game, and in whatever capacity that was. And so I was able to coach in travel ball. For the summer, they were looking for someone who could commit and a young female who could hopefully share some experience. So that jump-started things. And then obviously I reached out to Ryan Sullivan over at Bowdoin, and he knew me from my playing days. And he was like, you know what? Why don't you come in? We can always use extra hands. Why don't you come in and see if it's a good fit and just share some ideas. And we ended up, I think, talking in his office until maybe 1, 2 a.m. I mean, we just really hit things off, and it was a great fit. I actually volunteered. And like I said, I just wanted to get my feet wet. And that first year coaching under Ryan at Bowdoin, that really, really generated my interest in thinking like, okay, well, I love teaching. High school math is great and all, but it wasn't my passion. And so for me, coaching was just another form of teaching, which I think we can all agree with.
So were you still a high school math teacher while you were an assistant at Bowdoin? Was that overlapping?
I was. Those were some crazy days. So I was living in Portland at the time. And for the first month plus of our season, we had to practice in the Farley Fieldhouse. And our practice times would sometimes go from, sometimes we would have the earlier slot, but sometimes we'd go 9 to midnight. And so, of course, following practice, we would debrief, and I would leave Bowdoin around 1 a.m. I'd get home around 1:45 a.m. and get up at 4:35 a.m. to do it all over again. So after school, instead of going back to Portland and then having to come right back down to Brunswick for practice, I stayed in my classroom until 7 p.m. and then did a workout, grabbed a sandwich, and then went to practice. So it was pretty crazy there. But I paid my dues, and I think that's what we all have to do if we're looking to get a job that's, a dream.
So how did the Bates opportunity arise for you?
I believe I saw the job posting, posted online, and Coach Sullivan had talked with me a little bit about it. But then Kelsey Friedman, I think she was going into her junior year, and I had coached Kelsey in travel ball that summer prior. And I remember she sent me a text, and the timing of when it opened, I was very lucky. I think I was 24 when I was hired. So super, super young. And it was kind of just like a shot in the dark. I was like, you know what? I've got nothing to lose here. If anything, this will be a great experience to just put a resume together. And then it started with the phone call. I remember I had my phone interview during one of my geometry classes. And so I had another math teacher cover my class almost for like a sub. And then I was brought on campus. And at that time, the campus interviews were pretty intense. It was about 2.5 days, just interview after interview after interview, presentation, so on and so forth. And Bates and Kevin McHugh, athletic director at the time, took a chance on me, and I could never, I can't be more grateful for that.
I'm curious, Coach Sullivan's still the coach at Bowdoin. So when Bates plays Bowdoin in softball, I mean, it's already an intense rivalry, but for you, it must be crazy going up against basically, I assume one of your mentors, since you assisted right out of college there, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's gotten less weird over the years. The first couple years I was coaching against players that I had previously coached. So, and you have these relationships, you have these connections. I had a great experience at Bowdoin and I loved the team there. But I was ready to, and I felt at the time like I was ready, to take on something of my own and build something of my own. And, while Ryan's been a huge mentor and a great friend to me, it's definitely gotten less weird over the years. And I think we appreciate what each program, what each coach and the players alike bring to the table. There's a lot of respect there. And, I'm really, really thankful for that.
What was the biggest adjustment once you got to Bates running the show, if you will?
Oh gosh. Aaron, it was really challenging and it still is. So when I was hired in November, but I had to finish teaching that semester at Brunswick. So I actually didn't start until after I gave midterms at Brunswick, which was like mid-January. So the first I didn't have, so therefore I missed 2 recruiting cycles. So my first 2 seasons, I didn't have one recruited class. I didn't have my first recruited class until my 3rd season, at which then that season prior to, it was the Kelsey Friedman, Brenna Callahan, those 2 pitchers who both graduated, and there were no pitchers that were recruited underneath them. So my 3rd season for my first recruited class, it was honestly probably one of the biggest challenges that I've ever faced. And so it was not just learning the ins and outs of how to be a head coach, because there's so much more to it than I think what people realize. I was also super young at the time. So trying to balance, building relationships with these student athletes while maintaining that order in which, there's a special balance that you need to maintain. And so that was challenging. So there's a lot of things that were just like on the plate, and it takes time and it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that was one thing too, Aaron, that I had never experienced before, is that everything that I had ever strived for was almost kind of like instantaneous. I was hired at Brunswick before I even graduated from UMF. And so I was just constantly, I always just had this instantaneous gratification in what I was trying to do. That was not the case for quite some time at Bates. And it was learning how to be okay with it being messy and just believing in the process and trying to share that belief. And fortunately, I had some really great players who stuck with some really crappy times. And I know that I wouldn't have been able to, to get through it if I didn't have, some of those student athletes who really just kept me above water, and hopefully I did the same for them.
You were a catcher in college, right?
Yes.
How much do you take your experience or your playing days to relate to, the catchers on this team or even the pitchers, because the catchers work with the pitchers so much, right?
Right. I think catchers, well, you just mentioned it. I used to be a catcher, so I'm a little bit biased here, but I think catchers have this innate leadership that, they're kind of the general on the field. They're kind of the extension of the coach. And for me, transitioning from that playing position to now coaching, I feel like I've always had a voice and I've always felt comfortable in using my voice as a player, obviously as a coach now. So I feel like it was that transition was really nice because a lot of the skills that I used from catching, from that leadership standpoint, I was able to translate into, coaching and what have you.
We touched on, one of your mentors, the coach over at Bowdoin, but I mean, any other people you've really gone to in your career so far to seek advice and whatnot?
Definitely, definitely. I have been so blessed with not just some of the best mentors, but people who have really grown to be some of my best friends. Pat Conlin at Georgetown University. She started the program at Georgetown. She's also the vice president of our National Coaches Fast Pitch Association. She played in the World Series in Oklahoma as a student athlete at UConn. Coach Pat has really taught me to lead with compassion and lead with empathy and communicate and listen. And, that's something that I still strive to improve. That's going to be a never ending task for me. I never want to feel like I'm complacent and like, all right, I've got this figured out. I can do this now. I can, but it's always wanting to grow and learn and figure out how to be better. So Coach Pat, she has been instrumental for me, especially during those tough years. And what's rewarding too is she's had some tough years as well. And the person that she reaches out to, in addition, I know she has a few other friends and mentors in the game, but she reaches out to me. And what a humbling experience that is. And I'm forever grateful for her. A few others, Tiffany Osbin over at Denison in Ohio. She is just truly a light in the game, a light in life. I mean, this woman brings so much positivity and energy and has just really helped me figure out how to see kind of the glass half full at times when it's really easy not to. And she's been just instrumental in helping maintain that positivity and just a phenomenal human being. And then, a few others, Lacey Wood, she was the associate head coach at Harvard. She's now the head coach at Ball State. I think she'll be moving to the Power 5 here pretty soon. I don't know if she'll be listening to this ever at some point, but that's my prediction. So she's been great. And then Jenny Allard, who is the head coach at Harvard. Talk about just the work ethic and the time and the ability to work with high academic student athletes and find that balance in the Ivy League and compete at a really high level is someone who I really, really look up to.
You're a Mainer through and through. How do you connect with these folks from all over the country?
Oh, heck yes, I am, Aaron. Love Maine. So there is a high academic camp that's called Head First Honor Roll, and they host these camps from all over the country, or they host them all over the country. Sorry, and they bring in some of the best coaches from the highest academic schools. And I've been going to the Head First camp since their very first inaugural camp, and meeting Coach Pat there really kind of kicked things off. I saw she was sitting by herself over at a field. No other coach. How it's structured, there's usually more than one coach. And so she was sitting, she was evaluating some of the pitchers behind this backstop. And I just sat down next to her and I don't know what it was, but something came over to me that was just like, okay, ask this person a question to just try to pick their brain. And so I sat down next to her and I was like, hi, Coach Pat. I'm, McKell Barnes. I'm really a huge admirer of you and what you've done for our game. As a young coach, I'm 24. Do you have any piece of advice that you would offer? And we still talk about this to this day. And when she presents at our national convention, she brings up this story of, and it's kind of just trying to encourage young coaches to reach out and not be afraid to put yourself out there and ask hard questions. And her piece of advice in return was be yourself. And, you take so much information from all kinds of different coaches, and a lot of coaches try to emulate that. So it would be really easy for me to come in and try to run the Bates program like I knew it was at the Bowdoin program. But if that's not authentic and true to who I am holistically, then it's not going to work in the long run. And so that was a really huge piece of advice because I didn't know any different. And I loved my experience at UMF. I would not be here if I didn't go to UMF, but it's vastly different from a Bates in terms of competition and in terms of conference play and what the expectations are. So I didn't really have much of an experience other than volunteering at Bowdoin for 2.5 years. And her piece of advice, be true to yourself. You know what you're doing. You're here for a reason. You put the work in, you paid your dues. Trust that. Always want to grow and learn, but trust what's gotten you here. So that was huge for me, especially to hear at 24 years old.
You mentioned the level of competition in the NESCAC. As someone who started at UMF, you're the conference player of the year. Well, I mean, I'm sure you played NESCAC teams in non-conference games, but you sometimes think about how I would have done as a player in the NESCAC.
Oh, I definitely do.
Yeah.
And, listen, I'd be lying if I said if I didn't go back and look at some of the box scores of when I played Bates, Bowdoin, and Colby.
Right.
And I did pretty well against those schools too. So I definitely feel like I would have been okay.
You mentioned the adjustment period and everything. What are some things you've learned about college coaching through the years now? I mean, you've been at Bates for a number of years at this point. So what are some key takeaways you've had so far?
I think first and foremost, patience.
Mm-hmm.
When I first came in, like I said, that those first 2 years, it was the team that I inherited, and we had some really great talent on that team. The year before I got here, there were 9 seniors that graduated. So it was almost kind of restarting, even though there was a good core that stayed, it was still restarting and rebuilding. And so learning patience through that, learning grace and staying humble. And I was checked so many times. I mean, heck, we went 5-32 in 2015, and how gut-wrenching that was. I remember my dad saying to me, listen, at the end of the day, if this is going to make you a better coach, it's going to be worth it. And I think it was in 2 years turnaround, or maybe 3 years turnaround, we then had the best record in program history. And that's remarkable to go from what we went to where we were at. And even, last season, we haven't touched on that, but we were primed to have truly one of the best teams in the NESCAC, if not New England, and then beyond. And so learning patience to understand that you have to believe in the process, even when it's not easy to, and even when it's easier to, step outside of that. And so that really showed me a lot of self-will and trust, and I knew what I was doing, and it was just sticking to that plan, but also adjusting along the way, because I didn't have everything figured out, and I still don't. And I'm okay saying that, because that's how we get better. And I think it's a really special thing that a person can do when they can self-reflect and say, yes, I've got this in check. I've got this, I've got that, whatever. But being able to go beyond that scope and figure out what are some things that we can always do better, and having that grace and vulnerability to be able to put yourself out there and say that I don't always have it right, and that's okay, but I hold myself accountable, and we'll continue to get it right and improve.
Obviously, nowadays, right now, it's a very difficult time for any college sports teams. The spring sports, we don't know the status of this year. Don't want to speculate on that. Obviously, you mentioned last year got cut very short, but you were able to practice with a team this fall. What was that like? I mean, what were you talking with them about? How were you working with them to get better in the fall?
Yeah, so we had that window in October where we could practice. And I don't know if you remember back in October, but we had some really crappy weather. It just so happened that month we just had some real crappy weather. Our indoor facility is now being used as a dining hall. Um, Baseball and softball have had it rough.
Yeah.
Every sport has, of course, but not having a facility, not having, the we had a few days, maybe 2 or 3 days in October that were not 2 inches of rainfall when we had practices scheduled. It was great to just get the team together at times. The last 2 weeks, I think, were when we were able to get our full group together. The first 2 weeks we did smaller groups,
Right.
multiple sessions throughout the day. Um, but it's been hard. It's been really challenging. And trying to figure out how to stay connected has not been easy. And it's I try, and I did this back in the fall, but I tried to prepare the team as best we could for kind of worst case scenario. Last year was almost this like blindsided, sudden death, it felt like.
Right.
And I don't know what is worth if you are planning for it for a long time or if it is just sprung on you. It both hurt, but I can certainly tell you that last year was absolutely gut wrenching. And so for the fall, we just appreciating the time that we were able to get together. We had a couple scrimmages towards the end of October, when we had some daylight left. I mean, it was a crazy mix of all things compounding into just get out there, touch a softball, swing a bat, and who cares? Have fun. Get to do this with people that you love. Get to be together and just enjoy that moment. Try to stay present as much as possible. Prepare that we don't know what the spring will shake out to be, but we can't control that. And so, we have to be ready when our number's called. And in the meantime, do what we can to try to stay connected. And like I said, I'd be lying if I told you it's been hard. It has been very hard.
Well, and the only consolation, I guess, is that all the other programs in the NESCAC are basically in the same boat. I mean,
Yeah.
at least a very similar boat, I suppose. But I mean, have you talked to other NESCAC coaches or other coaches around the country about how they're handling things?
So we're actually having a NESCAC coaches Zoom tomorrow to
Oh,
check in and say hi to everybody. So we've done, we have a text group that we send off here and there, messages. So tomorrow will be like more of a bigger check-in. I think everyone's just trying to prepare for what could be. And my take on things is, like I said, when our number's called, we'll be ready. In the meantime, just try to work on some mental health. This year has been tough in so many different capacities. Obviously, January has been a massively huge month in terms of current events and what's taken place across our country. So I know personally, my efforts are going a lot towards mental health right now and getting our minds and our spirits and our hearts right. Obviously trying to take care of our bodies as well in that in the meantime there, but there's a lot to digest, and we try to do it as a team sometimes, and I think people are exhausted, and that's okay. So working through that, I'm hopeful that when we're all back on campus and we're able to get the group back together again, that we'll be able to jive and make those connections more so than what has been able to be possible over Zoom. So,
sure.
definitely hopeful for that.
I guess right now the answer might be like just being on the field, but in general, what's your favorite part of coaching? What makes you look forward to, like, in normal times? What makes you look forward to going to practice, going to games, and everything?
I think sport is such a unique platform where you feel every single emotion in such a short time span. And you really don't get that in any other platform. You don't get that in the classroom. You don't get that really anywhere else. And so being able to process these feelings of excitement, of fear, of anger, of positivity, of self-doubt, of self-confidence, really across the spectrum, being able to process that with people who are sharing that same, experience, I think is really, really powerful. And I think it brings this, uniting aspect that we miss in so much other places of our lives. And so I think that's really powerful. And so a derivative of that would obviously be the relationships, because we go through these experiences together, and because we try to share this common goal and enact together to reach those goals. We build these relationships, and I'm looking forward. I'm actually having dinner with 2 alums tomorrow night. I have an alum who reaches out to me at least once a week to just touch base about certain things. She's a teacher and a coach as well. So to me, that's the most fulfilling, when we can build these relationships. And I hope that shows that I'm having an impact, because I definitely know that they're impacting me. And I think back to my experience of being a student athlete, and I got to be honest, being a student athlete's a lot easier than being a coach. But thinking back to my experience as a student athlete, and how those are my best memories from college. Those are my best friends now. And it's such a powerful, lifelong commitment that you have with these people, and you share certain things with them, from across the emotions, from across certain experiences that can't be broken and can't be simulated, like I said, in any other platform.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts you wanted to share? That sounds like it summed up pretty well, but any other thoughts you wanted to share about coaching we haven't got to talk about yet?
I think we have to continue just putting one foot in front of the other. And it's not always easy to do that. It's certainly under the umbrella of what we've had and the rain that we've had this past year. But trying to maintain that perspective, and being where your feet are, and then putting one foot in the front of the other. And that would be my last piece of coaching tips right now as we move forward into second semester. So whoever listens to this, that's what we have to do. And I think we have to do that while supporting each other. And that's my goal. We'll take one little step at a time, and we'll figure it out as we go. And this is going to be one of those years where that's just going to be what it is. And, that's hopefully at the end of the day, if it makes me a better coach, going through some of these challenges, I'm all for it.
All right, McKell Barnes, thank you so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
Jon Martin was hired as Bates Baseball's head coach in August of 2016. In his first season at the helm of the team, he led the Bobcats to their third ever appearance in the 4-team NESCAC Tournament. He followed that up with another appearance in the NESCAC Tournament in 2018, and in his third season at Bates, Martin was named the 2019 NESCAC Coach of the Year after leading the Bobcats to a 19-17 overall record and a 9-3 record in NESCAC East Division play, and a berth in the 4-team NESCAC Championship Tournament for the third straight season.
Kind of how it all started for me was I went into college thinking I was going to major in business and work in some sort of a business career, and my father was a businessman, and I thought I was going to kind of go into that maybe, or something similar to that. And I took my first econ class and worked like crazy to get a C, and got out of there. And I said, oh boy, like this is not what I want. And I thought about baseball and how much I loved it. And I got into majoring in physical education, and I got certified to teach health and phys ed, K through 6. I was going to teach the young kids. And when I graduated, I still wasn't sure that that's the career I wanted to pursue. And I still wanted to stay on the college level somehow. So my coach at the time was Percy Abel, who was my head coach. He was the head coach at Lynchburg for 20 years, and kind of made me an offer and said, hey, why don't you stick around and be a graduate assistant and go to graduate school. And that's kind of how I started into college coaching. And I've been here ever since.
So you're coaching guys you were teammates with, right? The previous year, as an assistant now, what was that adjustment like for you?
It was tough. It was something that I think I was ready for. And I think it's something that most guys, if you're really, or any athlete, when you graduate and you're ready to, if you want to get into coaching, you're ready to make that separation, right? And you're ready to be a mentor and be a coach and be professional with your relationships that you have with your teammates or former teammates. So I kind of had a quick meeting with all the guys and just said, look, I'm here to help you. I'm here to be a positive asset to this program. I'm not here to be, bossy and run you into the ground or anything like that. I'm here to help you be a better team and better player. And they all understood it. And it really wasn't a difficult transition for me. But I was also very fortunate that I was surrounded by a lot of great people there.
And then how did you end up going from Lynchburg to Vassar, where you coached as a head coach for a number of years there?
Craziest thing. So I finished graduate school at Lynchburg in 2003, was ready to see what else the world could offer me and get out of Lynchburg, Virginia. And I applied just out of the blue for a full-time assistant position at Vassar. The head coach there, Andy Barlow, who's now the head baseball coach at MIT, hired me. And somehow I fooled him into bringing me on his staff. And I was there for 14 years total. And I once he left and took the job at MIT, I was able to kind of maneuver into the position, and I stayed there ever since. So totally random that I found Vassar College, but great experience, great place, great people once again. And we did a lot of good things there.
What was the first couple of years running the show at Vassar like for you?
Challenging for sure. We weren't a highly competitive program. My first 2 years there, we didn't have a facility on campus until we built one when I was there, and so it was a really challenging team as far as creating a competitive atmosphere. But after a few years and bringing in some players, and we built a facility, and things started to change, and you kind of start to see the bright side, and we eventually put together some really good teams there.
In terms of the recruiting aspect, I mean, how do you sort of learn how to do that kind of, because that's sort of very unique to college coaching in particular, the recruiting aspect, and then Division III, additional challenges with no athletic scholarships and whatnot.
Right. So if I had to coach, I mean, I'm a coach, that's what I do. And if I had to coach in high school, I could do it and I would do it. But I love the college level because I love the older kids, working with the older students. And I also, I like to recruit. I like to build my team. In high school, you kind of take what comes through the system each year. And here I can address a need for talent or positional or whatever the case may be. And I can go out and find that. And at a school like Bates, we have a national draw, so I can go coast to coast and find players from anywhere. And it was like that at Vassar too. And I love that part of the recruiting, process. It's challenging. I think every young coach really works hard and tries to establish himself as a recruiter. But, when it comes down to it and you see players and you evaluate high school players, you like what you like. And you kind of start to see a pattern with certain players with their talent or their ability that you bring in, or even personality. It's kind of funny how a lot of guys that I coach now and have on the team now remind me of players that I had 13, 14, 15 years ago, and a lot of that is just maybe they come from a similar high school program or the same high school program. Maybe I noticed them on the recruiting trail because they have this one skill or something on the field that I noticed that, hey, that reminds me of a really good player I had 12 years ago. And I go after him. I don't know what it is, but you start to see those things. But you also see things every summer I go out, every time I evaluate players, I see things I've never seen before. So it's changed a lot in over 20 years of doing this. I'll tell you that much.
Who are some of your big mentors in the world of coaching? People you go to if you have questions or you ask advice of throughout the years?
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of them. I mean, I've got a lot of guys that I bounce things off of, and some of them are even here in the NESCAC. To be honest with you, I try not to get too much. Try not to give too much away. But I obviously my head coach, Coach Abel at Lynchburg, was a big part in pushing me along. Andy Barlow, like I mentioned, Andy Barlow at MIT is a great baseball guy with great experience, and he's really helped me along the way. His assistant coach, who is actually the associate head coach now, Todd Carroll, is a lifelong friend of mine. He's been a friend of mine forever, and he's a really good baseball guy. I bounce a lot of ideas and pitching things off of him. And then, still guys I talk to quite a bit are just assistant coaches that I've had work for me. I mean, Andy Kirikides was an assistant coach of mine for about 7 or 8 years, and he went on to coach Division I baseball, and now he's working in the business sector, and he's doing some other things. But I still talk baseball with him, and obviously Deschler, Coach Deschler. I talk to Desch all the time, and he's a very good young coach, and we talk a lot about what our plans are and recruiting and on all that. So mentors to me aren't just guys that had helped me, that are older than me or helped me along the way. It's people that I still communicate with all the time now.
And then for you, I know some cool experiences you've had coaching overseas, right? Tell me a little bit about those opportunities you've had.
Well, I think when I got into this, I wasn't really sure what was possible and what I could do with it. And you have to kind of think of being a coach as you're an entrepreneur, right? I mean, you make out of this career what you want to make out of it. And there's a lot of different things you can get into. And part of that was for me was recruiting in camps, and I wanted to get on the camp circuit and establish myself there. And once I kind of got into it a little bit, I started to meet certain people at conferences, conventions, different camps. And you realize how spread out all over the world the game of baseball is. And I've been able to just link up with other coaches that I know, and some certain outfits here. Planet Baseball was one of them that I helped get started, where we put together teams of players from across the U.S. and we go overseas and compete. And we've been over to Asia, we've been to Japan, we've been all over Europe, South America. I mean, you name it, and Puerto Rico quite a bit, Dominican. And it's just been an awesome experience, and it's something that I really worked at, but I also, I look at it and the game of baseball has been so good to me. I've been able to see the world all while playing this game, so it's a pretty incredible thing when you look back at it, and hopefully I still have some more to come. We'll see.
Right. Obviously the moment in time right now, not the best for college.
Not right now.
No. How have you dealt with it with your team?
It's challenging. It's really challenging. I think that we are all, kind of looking for the light here at the end of the tunnel, trying to get out of this thing. We've talked. I stay in communication. We had a good fall. It was good to have the guys back on campus in the fall. We were able to get outside, and we were able to, get some workouts in and get on the field in the nice weather. I just try to keep in touch with them. I try to just talk to them as much as I can and find out what they're doing. And it's not always, baseball, all business. It's, tell me what you did today. Tell me what you're doing now with your spare time. Some of these guys, they're all over the country. I mean, we've got guys out on the West Coast and Hawaii and in the Florida Keys and everything else. And, I'll give some of them a call and they're on the golf course, or I'll give them a call and they say, "Hey coach, like I'm on a paddleboard right now, down in Florida. I got to call you back," and they're finding ways to stay busy, but I know that they're ready to get back to campus. And hopefully, this spring we can get out and work out some more and possibly play. I don't know. We're waiting to hear, but I think that the guys have made the most of it. I think they've kept a great attitude so far, and stayed positive. And, when you're 20 years old, 21 years old, you're pretty resilient to a lot of different things. So I think they're doing all right.
How would you describe your coaching style or philosophy? Any people you model yourself after? Like, do you watch baseball on TV and see big league managers and what they do, or is that not even comparable in terms of what you bring to the table, kind of?
Well, what you see a big league manager do on TV is, I mean, is 0.5% of what they do, every day. So that doesn't do it any justice. I mean, you see them in the dugout hanging out with the guys and managing a baseball game. I mean, that's the fun part of what I get to do. And also a small percentage. My biggest thing that I've really simplified a lot of this over the years. And when I first started, I wanted to have, a printed out document of my philosophy and everything. And I still have all of that. But when it comes down to it, I want a valiant effort out of my players, and they want that out of me. Right. And as long as we both give that, we're going to be fine. Okay. When someone starts to pull back on that effort a little bit, right, and maybe it's not as great as it was at one point or is missing totally, then we start to have issues, right? And when you think about it, that's what your boss wants out of you, right? I mean, Bates pays me a salary to keep this program up and running at a high level, right? And I, in turn, have expectations out of Bates. I mean, that's how this works. And when we both work together, we're going to make great things happen. And I want the guys to enjoy coming every day. I want them to enjoy coming every day, because if they don't enjoy it and it's a drag and they don't look forward to it, then why are we doing it? Why are we doing it? I mean, we're all adults here. We're still involved with baseball. We're still playing this game at the college level because we want to be here and we want to do it, especially at a Division III school. So give me the effort and let's make it enjoyable for everybody. And that's my biggest thing when it all comes down to it, right? The X's and O's, the strategies, all that's the easy stuff, right? That's the easy stuff. That's the stuff that that's the fun part of it. But to make it all work, we both give an effort, we meet in the middle, and we enjoy coming every day, and good things are going to happen.
And then I'm curious about moments during your career as a coach that really you remember, like whether it be in game or maybe a big moment you had off the field, even with like a student athlete, or anything that stands out like in your mind that you'll always remember, I suppose.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh man, there's a bunch of those. I would say the first time I've clinched a postseason spot with a team for sure. And I would say, some of the players that I mean, I can think of two guys right now, one from Vassar and one from Bates, that really made it all. I mean, you look back at what they did, and it's just incredible. And the one at Vassar's name is AJ Kim, and AJ was relentless that he was going to be our starting catcher. And his first couple of years didn't play much at all. And then next thing you know, he's a junior. He's still the backup. The guy that he's behind gets hurt in the first game of the season, like the 9th inning of the first game of the season. He breaks his ankle. He's out for the year. We didn't have it. We had two catchers, rostered catchers. We had an extra, a third catcher, but he was kind of a utility guy. And AJ caught every inning the rest of the season for the next 2 years. And in my opinion, was the best catcher in the league, and worked so hard and was relentless, didn't let anything get to him. And that's how you got to be, right? It wasn't working out for him, and he kept pushing and got what he wanted out of it. Now he's very successful right now. And I would say the one from Bates, I mean, Justin White. I mean, Whitey, my guy, like this, I mean, what a story. I mean, it's just incredible that, what he was able to do while he was here. And, he's another one that I tell guys that things aren't going well for them, or they want more playing time, or they're not happy with this and that. Keep pushing, right? Trust the process. Keep pushing. Things are going to happen. You've got to believe in it. Don't doubt anything. Keep doing what you're doing. And those are two examples right there of guys that I'm proud to have been their coach for sure.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants to learn more about Justin White, we did a video piece on him. You can just search his name and Bates College on YouTube, and you can find it pretty easily, I think. So
absolutely,
what he was able to accomplish. In terms of like, are you a goal setter for a team at the beginning of the year? Do you do that? Or I know some coaches do, some don't. What's your philosophy there?
Yeah, we set goals, but they're simple. I don't want to get too in detail with goals. They're certainly attainable. They're team oriented. If players want to talk about personal goals, then that's fine too. We can do that also. But they're, as far as team goals do, yeah, I mean, and they change every year, right? They change every year, but it's just, it's what does this team want to accomplish? What do we think we're capable of doing? And I think it's important when you set those goals to every so often go back and reevaluate them and see if you're on track. And if you're not, you can revamp them or continue on course. But I mean, I think goals are important. I think it gives you just kind of something to work for. I think we all have to set goals in life to get things accomplished.
You've touched on this, but what do you really enjoy most about coaching? What's the one thing that if someone asks you, why do you coach? You say, this is the main reason.
Oh man, that's a complex question there. Or my answer is complex. There's so much to it. I mean, I can't imagine myself doing anything else at this point. And if I'd be in big trouble if I had to, let's put it that way, because I don't know how to do anything else. I like it all. I like the late night bus rides coming back. I like the cold practices. I still enjoy all that. Like I'm not done with the game. There's no doubt about it. But I also, just seeing what my players do once they get out of their college years and they start their own family and they have their careers and every once in a while I'll kind of go through years of rosters that I've had and Google names just to see what guys are doing for careers now. And it's really rewarding, especially if there's something that I know that the two of us, worked on, to accomplish in their 4 years here, like really set a course to do something, which is not all of them, but there are some guys that, we put some work in on some issues and it's great to see what they've accomplished and it makes you proud as a coach for sure.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts you wanted to share we haven't on to talk about in terms of coaching?
No, I just love what I do. My dad told me when I was younger, he said, I'm going to give you this about choosing a career. If you ever wake up in the morning and you dread what you're doing every day, find something else. And he hit the nail on the head with that one. And that I've been very fortunate and very lucky that, that hasn't been the case for me. So I still enjoy waking up every day and hopefully putting a team together this spring.
Next time on the Bates Bobcast, we'll start our senior salutes with our fall sports athletes, starting with our volleyball program. Hear from the senior captains next time on the Bates Bobcast.
Bates,